Hey geeks, hope you are doing well. So I have 6, 7, 8 weeks of comics that I've been bagging and boarding. New releases with some used stuff mixed in, and free comic book day. No, um, this was part of that Superman Day. Uh, yeah, Superman Day special. They were giving away these free comics. So I got this Jimmy Olsen's Super Cyclopedia. You see, he's got a mother box there. I guess that could contain the Super Cyclopedia. Um, so I was just bagging and boarding these. I thought, oh, I'll make a quick video because, you know, why not? This is the summer of Superman special, so I picked this up on that Superman Day. It was cool. I think I showed it in another video. They were giving like 20% off Superman like graphic novels, omnibuses, collections, and this so forth. And I was able to get the War World compendium for like 20% off, and that was cool. Yeah, so I haven't read any of these yet. I'm just going ahead and bagging and boarding them. It might as well get that step out of the way. And then I put them in a short box that is marked to read. so, so that's how my system works. I went back and picked up another one of these silent missions from G.I. Joe. The two that I got, the one with Jinx was amazing. Uh, the other one, I forget who it was. It was decent, but that one from with Jinx was really good. And this one looked cool. So this one has a kind of a Frank Millerish vibe to it. The interior as well. I don't know who this cover artist is, but what was really super cool was I found in their back issue stack. So I got this for like $1, maybe less, maybe 50 cents. I've showed so this Giantkiller comic book was there were 4 issues of it. I found issues 2 and 3 a couple of months ago, and I was just wowed by it. Like I didn't know this thing even existed. Apparently, this issue number 1, I don't know, kind of hard to find. I don't think you can find it for $1. Um, and Dan Brereton, um, I have a book of. I've showed this book I have of Batman. It's like these Batman trading cards, but it's all painted artwork. I think it's called Batman Masterpieces or something like that. This is the guy that did those paintings, or at least most of them. And he does painted comics, as you can see, which are just fantastic. So he doesn't have a lot of output. He doesn't have a ton of comics out there. He came over, I guess, from the gaming card business and got into comics. But yeah, this came out in 1999. It's kind of a it's a kaiju type of comics, and kaiju comics in America really were not a thing so much. All there was in the early days was that Godzilla comic from Marvel, and of course they had licensed Godzilla from is it Tojo Studios, and you know there was no like original kaiju comics being created back then in the 70s and 80s. You maybe had some pop up in the 80s, I think, with some of like the Shogun Warriors comic book, again, which was licensed, from Japanese properties. Um, so there were nobody in America, no American comic book artists, not at least not at Marvel and DC, which in the 70s, that's pretty much all there was. Anything indie was very underground. Yeah, nobody was coming up with original kaiju comics. So in the 90s, that began to change. And, you still have like the traditionals Godzilla, King Kong, um, Ghidorah, all the stuff that IDW is doing. And of course now with all these crossovers with Godzilla right now versus Marvel, which has turned out to be pretty good. You got a lot of kaiju now, whereas you used to have like none. Now in Japan, different story, but we weren't getting manga from Japan back then. Uh, the only manga we were getting was what Frank Miller was aping in his comics. So that's how I learned about manga, was through Frank Miller. So yeah, but I've been looking for this issue. So I only have issue 4 now to get. This issue's badass. I mean, this is just several pages of just fighting, kaiju fighting. Um, yeah, so this was a good find. I wanted. There's no, from what I understand, I don't think there's a trade paperback for this that's out there. Um, you you know you have to find these issues. So I just got to find issue 4 now, and I'm sure I could probably find it on eBay or my comic shop. But it's more fun to find it out in the wild somewhere. So that was cool. Definitely gonna bag and board that. Um, God is Dead by Hickman, or at least he started it. So issue number 1. So yeah, this is another one I found. Like, it was in another video a few videos back. I found like issues 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that, and it looked intriguing. And they were advertising it as Jonathan Hickman's God is Dead. But he wasn't doing the writing at that point. I think he turned over. I think he did the first few issues or something like that. Started the story, started the concept, and then some other creatives took it over. So I was intrigued by the premise of it. Essentially, the premise is there's a period of time that's post gods, like all the known gods, both from the past mythologies and the current monotheistic gods, evidently die, and then there's some sort of a battle to like take their place. So it's an interesting mythological and deep time historical concept. I'm assuming this is most of the viewing audience. Oh no, it's Zeus. Okay, I thought that might have been the god of Jacob just for a second there. Um, so yeah. So I found this issue number 1, and I'm putting together this whole run. I think this ran, I don't know, 24 issues maybe, a couple of years. I'm sure there's a trade paperback. Oh yeah, it's a very gory comic. This is an adult comic book. Um, yeah, I think there is a trade pay. Yeah, actually, there is a paperback, because that's how I first initially saw these comics. Was just TPBs, just out there in the wild somewhere at a comic shop or in some kind of used comic bin or whatever, and didn't really pay much attention to it. But I've been kind of on a Jonathan Hickman kick lately with the run up to Fantastic Four and Avengers, Doomsday, and all that in the movies, and so I've been sort of kind of putting together my Jonathan Hickman saga with Marvel. I had that first graphic novel he did, the Shield, Architects of Forever, and I read that several years ago, and so I'm about to move into like the Fantastic Four omnibus, and then from there, I think next is Avengers, which I'd already read. Infinity. Infinity is one of those. I read the trade paperback, which is about 400 pages long. That was one of those books that I just kind of picked up. I think around 2011 or 2012, shortly after it came out. And it's one of those books that kind of started nudging me back into comics, because I read it and I was like, holy shit, this is pretty good. And it was a Thanos oriented book, and of course Marvel was on the verge of introducing, or had just introduced, Thanos as the villain in one of the teasers, or in one of the stinger moments, I think, from the first Avengers movie. And I was like just blown away that they would have the cojones to bring Thanos in as the first big villain. And they did, and we all saw how that turned out. it's probably not ever going to be topped again. So yeah, so I'm on kind of the Jonathan Hickman kick, and he just came out with Imperium from Marvel. I got that issue in the stack. I'll be bagging and boarding that later. But the artwork in this is pretty cool. And he also just recently wrote, or is currently writing, Avengers versus Aliens, or Aliens versus Avengers. Um, it's kind of a palindrome, isn't it? Avengers versus Aliens, Aliens versus Avengers. Doesn't matter. You can put one before the other. It doesn't matter. And so I that's another book, like, I saw it and I just like snobbishly turned my nose. Oh, more gimmick comics. There's Disney taking advantage of owning everything and doing crossovers with everything. It was like that Predator versus Black Panther book, and I was like, oh, come on, man. I mean, I'm not. I like it when superhero comic book companies crossover, but these movie crossovers. Since then, though, I've dropped my snobbishness towards that idea, and I've learned to embrace it because what are you gonna do? It is the reality. These crossover books are a reality now. They're going to keep happening, and but when I started, reading some of them, with that Godzilla versus Spider-Man versus Hulk, versus Avengers. Those were was it Godzilla versus Fantastic Four? Those were pretty good, and I was like, well, you know what? They're fun, and I like Godzilla comics. I've been catching up on a lot of the IDW stuff, and I loved the Godzilla comic from the '70s. I don't have all the issues. I need to get that omnibus, but yeah. So I thought, all right. So when I looked at that Aliens versus Avengers, Avengers versus Aliens again, I noticed that Jonathan Hickman had been writing that too, and I think Sam Wilson is Captain America in that. And I like the Sam Wilson Captain America. I just watched the Captain America Brave New World again last weekend, and I think I actually liked the movie better seeing it the second time than I did the first time when I saw it in the theater. So that it is what it is. You don't like it, lump it. And so yeah, the point being is I got very interested in that A versus A comic book when I saw that Hickman wrote it. So I bought all of the back issues, which was just issues 2, 3, and 4. They didn't have issue number 1, but I found issue number 1 on eBay. When I was at my comic shop, they said that issue number 1 went through like 5 different printings. It was sold out. They didn't have any more to get. So I had to get on the internet and start searching around for it. Um, they are wildly priced. There are $40 issues of issue number 1 of that. I was lucky to find a guy that was selling a variant cover by Okura. I'm not familiar with this artist, but it was his was only like $8 plus shipping $4. So that was worth it to get my hands on issue number 1 because I was like, I've got the whole set. I don't want to. I got to get the number 1. I don't want to have to buy the trade paperback later just to read the first issue. So that is en route to me. And yeah, I thumbed through it. The artwork looks fantastic, and I think Hickman would be a great writer for that type of concept. Speaking of aliens, I also found this in the used bin. The Outer Space Men. They have come together to stop us from falling apart. Apex Comics, issue number 1. I don't know anything about this. Fabian Nichia. Okay, heard that name before. Chris Batista doing the art. When did this come out? (2022). Yeah, so this looks cool. You know, for a buck, some indie comics from not too long ago. That cover is what grabbed me. Though it's so it's so retro. Looks like an action figure type thing, like something you'd see printed on an action figure box. Yeah, and thumbing through it, I was like, all right, well, this looks interesting. So I will pick it up for, I'd buy that for $1. And I did. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to like this. So it's just like Jules Verne, Forbidden Planet. That's, yeah, there's a lot of interesting. This is very retro sci-fi too. Oh, I love it. This is pretty cool. Yeah, see, this is you just never know what you're gonna find out there in those used comic boxes. So yeah, I definitely have to start looking for these. These are like action figures. I don't know if they're actual action figures or if they're just kind of portraying them as action figures. Cthulhu Nautilus. Nice. Electron, the man from Pluto. Definitely. Yeah, I know that design. The Man from Planet X is a classic 50s science fiction horror film. Used to watch that as a kid on the Saturday afternoon creature feature. I don't know, man. I'm definitely gonna have to check into this deeper and see what in the heck is going on with it. I wonder how many issues of this came out. Very cool. Also, Planet Comics. I guess it's been revived. Planet Comics was around in the 50s. Um, I believe it. Most of the characters in the book, it's so old, they're all public domain. So I don't know if the name Planet Comics was. This is published August 2023, so not that long ago. Issue 22. So yeah, I had no idea this existed. Um, this is I don't know. It's kind of like there's two running anthologies. It's this black and white. It's sort of like this sci-fi like weasels or squirrel people in space. But then there's like this. This looks like the previous book. It's just sort of this kind of like retro alien science fiction thing going on. Shaman Kane, David Broughton. And so they also had issue 23, issue 24, issue 25. So I grabbed them and I figured, okay, if I like them, if I dig them, I'll I'll seek them out, seek out other issues. Yeah, here they're all black and white. This book actually looks good in black and white. This Shaman Kane. Yeah, Shaman Kane and the Extinctioners. So yeah, I guess it was just it ran for a couple of years, maybe longer. I'll have to look it up and see how many total issues there are of this. I've seen Antarctic Press comics before. I thought weren't they doing like a lot of fantasy stuff in the early 2000s? Not sure. Um, Now it's in color again. Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I'll have to see if there's other issues of this that are around. Maybe I'll start collecting these. 4 or 5 issues is enough issues for me to get a good feel if I dig the stories, which I think I will. Especially the Shaman Kane looks really interesting. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, yeah, this is right up my alley. So yeah, that's it for now. Battery's getting low, and we'll keep it to 20 minutes. Until the next one, stay geek.